welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Alex.
And I'm Cam.
And today we're reviewing the dual simultaneously released albums from Nine Inch Nails, Ghosts 5 Together and Ghosts 6 Locusts. Anybody out there? New Nine Inch Nails out now, Ghosts 5 to 6. Hours and hours of music. Free. Some of it kind of happy, some not so much. That was the tweet that Trent Reznor sent out to everyone, letting us know that he had just released 2 new albums with Atticus Ross under the Nine Inch Nails banner, and it was a welcome fin because it's a hard time right now, and he released them in solidarity to the band's fans in times like this. I don't know if they were recorded really quickly, like within the pandemic being a worldwide fin, or if he was working on them for quite a few months before and just had them at the ready anyway. Who knows? I don't know how his recording schedule or practices go. Whatever else, we've got 2 new Nine Inch Nails albums that are both tagged maybe just as a placeholder as ambient, because it's not just ambient, there's more to it than that, but it's definitely the primary musical show here. It's definitely not the industrial rock stuff that most people would maybe expect from a Nine Inch Nails. Do you have much experience with ambient or ambient adjacent stuff in general, Cam, or is this kind of a lot to sink in for you?
It is kind of a lot to take in all at once. I think longtime viewers, all one of you, might remember our very first review on the channel was of Brian Eno album, and the name escapes me right now.
Escapes me too.
Yeah, I've picked up a few more of Eno's classic albums in the years since that review, but surprisingly I still don't have any of the actual ambient 1, 2, 3, 4 whatever's, like music for airports or whatever. But I have gotten into, or tried to get into more ambient type music, mostly in the realm of ambient pop, which seems to be the huge thing, or one of the huge things in the last couple of years. But no, I haven't really gotten into capital A ambient.
Yeah, and neither have I. And it's nothing exactly new for Trent Reznor. Obviously, this is Ghosts 5 and 6. He's done 4 of these before, back in 2008. And he's just scattered around ambient tracks throughout the entirety of Nine Inch Nails' career, basically. There's A Warmer Place on The Downward Spirals, pretty much an ambient song. And with Atticus Ross, who is now only the second official band member of Nine Inch Nails, he has, before he joined Nine Inch Nails, done a lot of soundtrack work with him, which is basically actually the closest to preparation you can do for these, because it's pretty much similar stuff. Even if it is for soundtracking a film, it still is ambient stuff, maybe a little bit more film soundtrack classical tinge, but it's similar stuff to what you get here. Like he said, this is a lot of music. I think it totals 2.5 hours, right? Or even an hour plus for both of them.
Yeah, it's 2:33 on iTunes.
Yeah, it's a lot no matter what way you shake it, and bear in mind it is 2 albums, so if you're listening to both in a row, which I may have done, and it may have been unwise for getting into the albums on first listen, but it's all good, because the music's actually quite good. But yeah, in future I will listen to them separately. But fair enough to distinguish them though, because they are quite different. Together, well, he said it himself in the tweet, some happy, some not so much. Together, I guess, is the more calmer, more relaxing one, if you could even call it that, because it's still got some more ominous moments, and Locusts is the dark, creepy one, which may not be too inviting, or may give you sort of end-of-the-world vibes. Did you actually have a favourite of the 2, Cam?
It's really hard to say, because Locusts seems to be the one that people are gravitating toward, because I think it has more, something that more resembles traditional structures. It has more instruments, but I mean, it's got drum kit. It's got saxophone, I think, muted trumpet.
It's got more variety of instruments and sounds to them, for sure. And it's got more songs.
Yeah,
it's a longer track list. The song times are more spread out, the track length, so it's actually easier to get through in a way.
Yeah, there's arguments you can make for either one being easier to get into, because Locusts has more tracks, but some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, and it's got
Yeah.
more recognizable instruments, whereas Together is fewer tracks and it's the shorter album overall, but it's mostly synthesizers and textures and things. At least in the closing track, there's still some like drums and or percussion that come in toward the end of it. But for the most part, that one is just like the most stereotypically ambient of the two, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like calling both of them ambient is okay because especially Together is just ambient to me. I know, like you said, there are some like more typical Nine Inch Nails type drums on the last track, Still Right Here, where it basically does become a traditional Nine Inch Nails song with the drums, but a lot of this is ambient. Now, what is ambient music? It's hard for me to actually put into words. I guess it's just like the term to describe music that has a lot of ambience, and it is like the main thing about it. Because most of this is like ambience created within the like synthesizer or keyboards in the background, while some quite pretty, a lot of the time, piano chords are played above it and they mesh well. Little intricate parts grow out beneath it and like render the songs like quite interesting, and they grow and they evolve all over like really long track lengths, like, and track lists too actually, because these songs are long and sometimes it may feel like they don't change up much, and that may be the main reason why ambient music is quite hard to get into, because the songs are so long, they don't appear to change that much, and if they do, it's on the minute, acute scale, so it's hard to justify listening to it for so long. I'd say even a lot of Nine Inch Nails fans who listen to crazy songs like Head Like a Hole and Mr. Self-Destruct, crazy songs like those, like, can you actually see much crossover appeal between fans of that stuff and fans of this?
I think you just have to be like a fan of Trent in order to really get the full appeal of Nine Inch Nails overall, you know?
Yeah, because they've done a lot of different stuff. I haven't heard a lot of it. I own their first two albums. I own The Slip because it's free. I own Ghosts 1 because that's free. And I'm trying to get more into them because they are really good, and they're one of the bands I'm exploring a lot now. That's why we're covering this, kind of, because it's more Nine Inch Nails material, even if it isn't exactly what I had in mind. You listen to a song like Letting Go While Holding On, it's nearly 10 minutes long, but it's like the overall tone and atmosphere of the song, even if it doesn't change up much, it just feels like good stuff to listen to. Like, this is pretty high quality music, even if it is in a genre we're not too well aware of. Like, they know how to make the songs just interesting enough and just worthwhile enough to justify listening, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about specific songs, it's kind of difficult because of these reasonings. I'd say Locusts has more specific songs that are easier for me to talk about. I love the song Around Every Corner because it has, I think you said muted saxophone. It sounded more like horns to me,
Well,
but
yeah, I
I
mean,
might
like,
not.
I think that there's like some other songs that have sax. Maybe I could be wrong, but like, yeah, muted trumpet is definitely prominent on Locusts.
Well, whatever brass section instruments are in use here, they're really good. They're a really nice flavouring, a nice addition to songs like Around Every Corner and the Worriment Waltz. In fact, the use of it on Around Every Corner almost sounds like Godfather soundtrack music to me. Like, my favourite singular song, which is actually hard for me to figure out because, like, especially when you get to, like, When It Happens to Your New Normal, these songs are so short, it's actually hard to tell when you're getting into another song. But I'd say the song Run Like Hell's probably my favourite. It's short, it's compact, it gets those industrial drums in, it changes up a lot. A really good sense of foreboding, fear, and everything might not be okay in the end to it. Captures a really dark vibe really well. I really like that song.
I don't really think I have favorite songs, mostly because I just like wasn't really paying attention to track titles while I was listening to this. I was just trying to give myself over to the album and just like experience or the albums and experience them in full without thinking about breaks between tracks and the titles, especially because like other people have pointed this out that the first four Ghost EPs or just the first Ghost album, whatever you want to call it, none of them had titles. It was just four Ghosts 32 or whatever.
How do they title these songs? Is that Atticus Ross's new job in the band, or what? I don't know. Actually, I don't even know how he fully works with Trent, to be honest. Like, does Trent figure out one aspect of a song and he like adds a contrasting part to another part. Who knows? I think he works well with Trent, especially on soundtrack work. It is hard to focus on track titles, even for me, who has a few favourite tracks. How do you title ambient music? What warrants a track title? Is it from feeling? Is it from how they sound? I don't know.
Yeah. So I was just like trying to think of them as just like the new installments in the Ghosts lineup or whatever.
And they are.
Yeah, and they are. And like that's how it worked best to me. Like at the beginning, you had said that, you thought it was a mistake to listen to 5 and 6 back to back.
Not a mistake, it's just they are two different albums. Like, if you're feeling it's too long, you're listening to two albums that are over an hour each. Like, what did I expect? So, it's not a mistake, it's just like, be in for the long haul if you're doing that.
Yeah. Like I don't think I'd listen to them back to back either, but like even without that I could kind of feel them like working together. Like I think it would be a really interesting, double feature for albums because like together just starts getting really dark in the or, like not really dark, but just starts getting darker toward the second half of it. Ironically, an album called Together gets darker on a track called Apart. Sure that was planned out, but it's like you get
Yeah.
more drone sounds, some darker and moodier synths going, and then of course you got the explosion in the closers still right here, and then it's like explored throughout the entirety of Locusts. And
Yeah, true, because it does like dissipate at the end of Together, and then it begins again with like the curse clock, which is just sounds like a curse clock for the entire 7 minutes, and it is like really creepy, intentionally so. I do think they were both made to work hand in hand, even if they are altogether different albums. I feel like at this point, if you're here for Trent at this point, 30 plus years into his career, you can listen to 2.5 hours. He's done right by the fans, I'd say.
Yeah. Like I know we try not to get like too much into comparisons, but like I was just trying to think of like any entry point I could for understanding this and absorbing it. And so it's like this much music and having them be this long, it's kind of like the experience of a Swans album, like a latter day Swans album. And then
Yeah,
I could
similar in long length.
yeah, and just like the intensity of the experience. Like all this music that's gradually increasing in weight and tension, and like especially through Locust, it just like doesn't really let up all that much. And so like I was trying to filter it through that lens. I was trying to think like one song on Locusts that does breathe for a bit is Trust Fade. It really felt like some of the music in the background of songs on Radiohead's A Moon-Shaped Pool. It's just like there's all kinds of like little entry points that somebody who isn't so much into ambient and or Nine Inch Nails like I am not, can find something to appreciate.
So what would you give Together and Locusts, Cam?
Maybe I'm being generous, but honestly, I think I can justify giving each of them 8 out of 10 for different reasons.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. I think Together is an album that I think that's the one that I'm going to be returning to more, assuming I don't just listen to them one after the other. It's a little bit easier going, less tense, less brooding, like right up until the end. So it's just something that I can put on just to just let it wash over me and just give me something, unique to focus on. Whereas Locusts has it brings in like other instrumentations, like it has dark jazz listed as a secondary genre on RYM, and that's completely accurate with the kinds of instruments that it brings in and the moods that it sets for itself. That one is probably like the more interesting listen for most people, and I wouldn't argue with that, but it is much more intense, and I just don't think that it's one that I'm going to come back to, like at least not in the current climate that we're living in.
I'm going to give both of them an 8 out of 10 too, for pretty much the exact same reasons as you, Cam. I swear I'm not copying you. I swear it.
Liar.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what we say, and how we summarise it now, bear in mind that both of these albums were released for free, so even if you have some doubts that you might even like them, it's worth a shot, because there's a lot of good stuff here, and I just say I really appreciate Trent and Atticus Ross doing this for us. It's a lot of good music out here now.
All right, that does it for Ghosts 5 Together and Ghosts 6 Locusts. Thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers, everybody. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of our videos. Give us a like if you like this review. You can follow us on Twitter at _Busted Speakers, and you can follow me on Twitter at SubProspector. And check us out on Facebook, and we will see you all later. Bye.
Bye.